Hello Sounders, Mick here. So that's it, folks. The end of the 2024-2025 season. And as my friend Johnny Moore summed up afterwards in the Jimmy Dickinson Lounge, if you'd been told before going to Elland Road into the unknown of the Championship last August that by the end of the journey there'd be seven clubs looking at relegation on the last day, and Pompey would not be one of them. If you'd been told all that, you'd have been well chuffed. And we were. Against Hull City, as we sat down to watch that game, we were pretty chuffed. We were in a blissful state of disregard for everything around us, including the fate of Hull City, Luton Town, Preston North End, Plymouth, whoever else there was down there. And even as we went one down and listened to the joy of the orange people gathered, packing the Milton end, we couldn't really summon up a Fratton Park rally worthy of the name. You know, we're good. We're good in adversity. We can get our team going. But frankly, my dears, we didn't give a damn on this occasion. It's interesting, really, that in spite of the good and earnest intentions of John Mousinho and all those around him to honour the integrity of the league, that's the expression, and to do their best for all the clubs suffering the horrors of relegation or the threat of it, it's really very hard to play on the edge, to strain every sinew when you have nothing in reality to play for. It's really hard to summon up the will to do that. Of course, Hull were nothing if not focused, physical, and frightened to go home relegated. Pompey, of course, without wishing to let their support down, had given everything to secure their own safety. That emotional reservoir of energy was depleted, if not empty. Or so it seemed anyway, certainly in the first half of the game against Hull City. We started off on the back foot, and it was very, very hard to wrestle that momentum away from Hull. It's not surprising. There were only two young lads in Blair and Sadie, I thought, that summoned the motivation to change the picture for Pompey. And that was because they're young men who have so much more to do and recognise that in their humility and couldn't sit back, wouldn't have been allowed to sit back by anybody. Blair started off great, but was cut down in his prime, you have to say, pretty much literally, and finished by that overzealous and bookable challenge from number 24, and I can't remember who that was now, but it doesn't really matter. That finished him off. I mean, but Blair is a terrific prospect. I really think. I think that he's proven just in the last couple of weeks that he is someone that we can warm to. And indeed, you got that sense from the crowd. There was one moment when he all he did simply was run back, cover the opposing winger, or was it the full-back overlapping? Probably the full-back overlapping, and he was covering for him, and he got back onto the Pompey goal line and then cleared the ball cleanly and precisely, and he got a massive round of applause in the South Stand, and probably everywhere else in the ground. But people like him, people get him, people understand that he's got a massive ability, but also he's genuinely wants to make the most of it, and at Fratton Park, and we hope that's going to be the case. He's just got to build resilience, hasn't he? And physically he's got to come on. He has already, I know, he is stronger. But he's got to get still stronger, because he's going to get that sort of treatment. That, unfortunately, is what happens to very talented young wide players who want to run and want to beat people, and they're going to get cut down. And they've got to be able to get up and go again. And he will, I'm sure, do that. Wasn't the case against Hull. Sadie came on for him and applied himself as he does and can do, and rescued the scoreline with that massively powerful. He's got his single greatest virtue is his power, and he certainly thumped the ball home. Probably a goalkeeping error there. I think it was between the keeper and the near post. Never a good thing. But one felt for the keeper to some degree, because if it had hit him, it would have hurt. He belted that ball, and that really was it in terms of the game. I felt we did the best we could. We went through the motions, but our team, it had given its last dregs of motivation for the season. It was a respectable result, Sounders, and that felt fine. Both sets of supporters were satisfied, weren't they? The end arrived, the whistle blew, the sun came out. Fratton Park became a sort of garden party. 2,000 Hull City, good fans, good Hull City fans, got up early. If they came down directly on the day, they'd got up very early. 2,000 Hull City fans celebrated with their team at one end of the park. And none of us, I hope, I don't believe around me I couldn't see any of it, none of us begrudged them a moment of their joy. In fact, there was a guy from Hull. Actually, he was from Petersfield, but he was a Hull man, and he was in my lounge. So I had a beer with him, and he was just so worried before the game, so worried, just like you and I would have been had the boot been on the other foot, as it were. And I couldn't help but feel a little bit happy for him afterwards, because we understand. We all understand. And then, so they were up the Milton end, and then Pompey's players and management and coaching staff and players' wives and partners and girlfriends and children, so many delightful small offspring, all took over the Fratton grass and made it look and feel a bit like a garden fete. It was delightful. I assume it was a plan, but It certainly wasn't a very organised one. No one quite knew what to do, where to stand, who to look at. But it was gentle and happy, and like being on holiday already. Really, I felt in a way. Although we were sort of the observers up in the stands. The Fratton end did their thing and sang their songs about all the players, all the songs they could remember anyway. They have songs for. And up there in the stands, we said goodbye to our neighbours, agreed to be back again in August and look forward to seeing each other, and shook hands and continued, most of us, to clap those down below, who duly returned the applause. It was all very nice. The early kick-off came into its own. No one seemed to be in a rush. We could savour the sunlight and the warmth of the moment. Absolutely correctly, of all the people out on the park, John Mousinho, surrounded by himself by small children, got the loudest applause. What a wonderful career as a manager he is on, and how satisfying for us that it's with us. Great to see. It was good to see Rich Hughes down there in the sunshine. Arm at one point around Abu Kamara, one of his own in a sense, who obviously was feeling the emotion of his return to Fratton, and also, of course, the survival of his new club, quite overwhelming. And it was a real pleasure to see him greeting and greeted by his old Pompey fans, and to hear that great Kamara song. Oh, I can't sing it. No, I can't. My voice is gone again after a day at Fratton. That Kamara song, anyway, from the Fratton, and it's nice stuff. What else did I notice? Well, there was Cohen Bramall, who did a very positive and on his own final walk around the park. I don't know whether you noticed that. It was fairly early on after they went out there, but he did it. He did his own thing, and he walked through 300 degrees of the 360. Well, maybe 270. Anyway, he was applauding the fans, and it was a deliberate thank you, and it was reciprocated, because he's been a good signing for us, and we're grateful to him. And Freddie Potts was given a new song to me, anyway. Obviously one that's been around in the Fratton End for a bit, but it was very relevant to the moment. So it was pleading him to give us one more season of his skills. It was great, appropriate, but I'm afraid well out of his gift, unfortunately. But you could see that he enjoyed the appreciation. What a great memory for the young man, and he'll be able to write about that in his memoirs when he's famous. The Australians footballers amongst the squad hung out together, looking a little bit like they were from the other side of the world, but also for Hayden Matthews and Thomas Waddingham, that slightly bemused look, because their story with Pompey has hardly yet begun. You could almost see them huddled together, feeling in the wings, as it were, that their time will come. For Kusini Yengi, you have to wonder if that is the case. He was in the middle of it all, smiling his broad smile, but maybe not quite as broadly as he would have wished. His absence from inclusion in the squad must make us all wonder if his particular Northern Hemisphere adventure is coming to an end. Two final words about Isaac Hayden and babies. Perhaps babies first. Now, I know this is curmudgeonly of me. I feel I don't really want to spoil what was a lovely afternoon by talking about it, but I feel I should. I cannot for the life of me see why babies and toddlers were persuaded before the game to parade themselves when the team came out. And when I say that, of course it's not the babies and toddlers' fault. They were brought out by members, by their respective important family member, the fathers of these kids brought them out onto the pitch. And they actually lined up with the teams, and then they duly shook hands, if they weren't absolute babies, with the opposing team. And it just seemed wrong to me, somehow. For a game that Pompey had claimed they were going to take seriously. I mean, were Hull City players bringing out their children and babies? I'm sure they've proudly got some, but of course they didn't. They had a game to win. I simply can't recall that ever happening before. I mean, there was actually, funnily enough, a previous moment when mothers came out with children. But that wasn't actually Pompey players' wives and girlfriends. That was just, I don't think. I mean, that was fans' mothers, and so there was a bit that one could understand about that. I can't recall that Pompey players ever doing that before, even on the last day of the season, not before the game. And I realise that probably I sound really old misery now, and that's not a role I ever want to play. It just seemed a misjudgment. Babies, toddlers, children, mothers, wives, partners, everyone on the pitch after the game. Great! That's as it should be, and it happened after the game, and it was picture perfect. But keep the game serious. And finally, I just feel I want to mention Isaac Hayden. He after the game posted a tweet in gratitude for his loan spell at Pompey. Any of you who are interested should try and find it, really, because it's a model of how to say goodbye after a loan spell that's been great for all concerned. It's such a sensible, kind, warm, grateful, generous tweet. And all I can say is, Isaac Hayden, we've been grateful for you and your services to Pompey, and you have not let us down. In fact, you have made a contribution to our safety this season, and we wish you all the best for the future. There's so much more to say, Sounders, but I'm going to stop now because I'm knackered. And we're going to talk about our great club a lot this summer, starting off early next week when big decisions are going to be made and announced. And so I'm looking forward to doing that and talking to you. So take care for now, Sounders. And of course, play out, Pompey.